everyone. Welcome to the International Scientific Conference, Societal Interactions, Rethinking Modern Issues, organized by SMK University of Applied Social Sciences in partnership with Kazimieras Simonavičius University and UMass as a part of Erasmus International Staff Week. This project has received funding from the Research Council of Lithuania. Dear participants, thank you for being here in live broadcast on YouTube. Thank you for joining the opening ceremony. The plenary session will be starting soon. I am a doctor of social sciences, Giedrė Vaičekauskienė. I am a lecturer at SMK University of Applied Social Sciences at Vilnius University as well. SMK organizes this scientific conference to unite the academic communities of Lithuania and foreign countries, representatives of science and business to solve the problems of societal interactions and rethink up-to-date issues. This year, our main focus is on the topic of unstable world, which encompasses volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity that we deal with every day. We raise an essential question: how to survive in a VUCA world environment. We invite you to consider a permanent crisis in the global world in line with challenges in politics, economics, social life, as well as health and technological challenges. Let's start. For the opening speech, I would like to invite the director of SMK University of Applied Social Sciences, Viktorija Palubinskienė. Viktorija, please come to our virtual stage.
Morning, dear speakers, our guests, our colleagues. Today, it's a great honor for me to speak in this conference. And I think that the main of the conference is to be the bridge between different countries, different institutions, and different researchers. Today, when we have different global issues, it's really important to have stable and traditional ground. And I could say that this cooperation and collaboration in science activities could give us calm and stability. Also, when we work together, share our knowledge, we can become creators of new thinking, improve, and grow together. And this is the main idea of this conference. Also, I would like to give special thanks for organization committee to bring all us together. The geography of this conference is particularly wide, and I will be a real pleasure to see and hear the guests from Finland, Ukraine, Latvia, Georgia, Greece, India, Turkey. We are really pleased with the participants and colleagues from other Lithuanian higher education institutions. And of course, I'm really proud of my colleagues from SMK who took the time and put the effort to prepare the research and will share the results in this conference too. Let this conference create the innovations, new connections, new opportunities, new ideas, and provide the input to their implementations. Thank you for your time. Good luck for all speakers.
Thank you, Viktorija. Thank you for your warm, welcoming speech. Our first presenter of our conference is Dr. Nerijus Maliukevičius from Institute of International Relations and Political Science, Vilnius University, Lithuania, with presentation An Unstable World in the Post-Truth Era. Nerijus, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the organizers. Thank you for the institutions hosting this conference. Thank you for inviting me to make a speech, to make a intro speech about the unstable situation in the world now. Specifically, I would like to challenge us all with the issue of how media environment creates uncertainties and instabilities. As a starting speaker, I have a benefit to maybe diagnose mostly the problems rather than present the recipes for dealing with those problems. I hope my colleagues during the plenary sessions, other speakers, will join into suggesting the recipes for challenging those problems. So I would like to start my talk today in the following structure. First of all, I would like to look into the unstable world as a state of things, and I would like to pick it up from the situation of the visions for the future and how we thought about the world in the future. And those different outlooks from one perspective about the positive future as versus with this negative future, or the future where the world actually will become unstable. Another point that I would like to approach is what is really happening in the world as regards to the information environment, media environment, this whole situation we have now with this post-truth era, and how this has a direct impact on the instability or stability of the world. Then I would like to touch one aspect, a very important aspect as I view it, of how the media environment creates, or information environment creates instability in the world. This is specifically the truth concept and the problem of distrust in communities, in institutions, and so on. And definitely would like to try to touch a bit upon what can be done in this situation. So, as I said, the starting point would be the question of the visions of the future. And I will quote Marshall McLuhan with his futuristic vision of the future that he outlined decades ago. And he said specifically, networks and information interferences will create a global village where communication will cross boundaries of space and time. And in the future, we will all live in kind of a global information megapolis. Or as Mark Zuckerberg would put it, probably, or imagined, we will all live in the global student dormitory with the help of all those new technologies. So for years previously, the vision for the future was very rosy and very optimistic. How come we are now, and in this panel specifically, discussing the instability of the world, or the really sad reality of things? So isn't it a question that we are more and more actually moving not so much towards an utopia, but a kind of a dystopia or dystopian world, and specifically with the help or the push from those new technologies? So my question would be, why megapolis and not the vision of megapolis and not the vision of primitive tribe? Why a digital dormitory and not the vision of a digital cave? And actually, we are now discussing with our colleagues all those new concepts of echo chambers, isolated information bubbles, and things that new technologies created as a kind of a digital cave. So if the future is so not rosy, but kind of a dark, so maybe the better way to describe it would be digital Middle Ages or digital Dark Ages. And the problem here is that the artificial intelligence and all those new social media technologies are just not putting us in different chambers, in different caves. Those new technologies deliberately, purposefully crash us with each other, crash those tribes, because that's the business model for those social network technologies. So my question from, or lesson maybe from history, if in the past the Dark Ages were challenged by the era of Enlightenment, maybe it's again a very ripe moment for all of us to think, first of all, philosophically, and later definitely practically, about the new age of digital enlightenment. And I think this just can be illustrated with all those discussions, academic-wise, political-wise, everywhere, about media literacy initiatives, social resilience initiatives, and things like that. They just represent this whole need to challenge this new unstable world. And I think I will, from time to time, will come back to Marshall McLuhan's quotes, but I think the most famous quote of the medium is the message, and the metaphor of extension of man as a kind of a human holding a hammer to to deal with things, as a medium being a hammer, an extension of it. I think it is a very good illustration, because hammer is something that doesn't bring us together, but specifically breaks things. And I think I'm more and more being skeptical about the future of things. And I think his quote that he presented, that we look at the present at the rear view mirror, and actually we march backward into the future, is a very right one about the current situation, how we are actually engaging everyone with new technologies. We are overwhelmed by all new technologies, by social media and so on, but we actually don't know how to use those technologies constructively, positively, and on top of that, algorithms bring us back into the tribal fights and so on. So the next question: what is really changing in this whole environment in this post-truth era? I think many things, definitely, but what I want to point out is, first of all, definitely the speed of information, the speed of communication. And this speed creates multiple changes in business. I'm specifically looking into how speed changes politics. And the way news now travels, information now travels, puts politicians in a very dire situation where they have no time to strategically think about their decision-making process and about the consequences of their decisions. They have to make their political statements now, because this is the urge of the speed of the whole information and data. Definitely the other thing is quantity of information and quantity of messages. And this, I think, creates an environment of information overload or environment of information noise. And in this environment, basically those with the most scary messages, the most emotional messages, the messages that are, attracting most attention definitely wins. And in this way, we have a political unstable world where populist politicians who are masters of those techniques are basically most visible in some respect, and in some societies, countries, they really more and more win elections and go into political system. The other change, very important, is definitely over contents, and the contents of information or news or media becomes more and more, I would say, visual and rooted in emotional, basically, reflexes. So this is why we are more and more discussing the challenges of, I would say, deep fakes. More and more we are discussing the way all this basically dopamine-related scrolling on social networks changes our young generation, the way they receive information and so on. And the final one that I would like to maybe bring up is the technological hijacking, I would call technological hijacking of communication. The way artificial intelligence, machine learning comes into play when we try to deal with this unstable world, when we try to somehow control this information noise. And the very practical example would be big tech companies, social network companies, be it Twitter or Facebook, that are overwhelmed by fake news, misinformation, and so on. And the thing that they are doing, they are putting artificial intelligence forward to dealing with those problems. And that doesn't mean that this technology will solve the problems. Basically, there is this idea by social networks that as regards to fake news and misinformation, they can whether remove it, reduce it, or try to inform audience by branding it as fake news, false news, and so on. But the issue is that the ones who are doing that is the machines and artificial intelligence. They are doing branding, they are doing shadow banning and things like that, not the humans. And in the end, there are very big challenges of how effective this is and how ethical actually this is. Now the question of truth in this whole debate and issue. And in this regard, I would like to present an example of Kassam, who actually analyzed the relationship between knowledge and truth. And he put forward a very interesting, I would say practically interesting example of how our understanding, our trust in knowledge is really related in trust in ourselves. And his practical example was about an individual who each morning closes the door and puts on the alarm system in his house. And he is confident about the safety of his house, about knowledge that he did the right things, because he remembers things he did in the process of it, right? And he tells a story of his colleague at work, when this guy comes to work, who starts to troll him in a kind and says, are you confident that you put on the alarm back, in your house? Are you confident that you are not absent-minded and you didn't, forget it? Are you confident that your house is safe and so on? And suddenly the man starts to doubt himself, although he did all the right things, and his house should be safe, an alarm should be on. So the issue here is that taking this example, we are constantly bombarded now with messaging, with conspiracy stories, with issues about things that we were confident previously about, medical processes, about scientific knowledge and so on. This information overload creates a situation when we start even doubting, our own knowledge, our own education and so on. And this is a very important message philosophically. I think that actually this constant growth of mistrust, not just in institutions, not just in communities, but mistrust even in ourselves, is a result of this post-truth era, where we are bombarded with messages that make us doubt even ourselves. And that can be done objectively, but that can be done very deliberately by authoritarian regimes that want to sow doubt about democratic processes, about media, about professional medicine expertise and so on. And this is the world that we are entering, a world which is dominated with doubt and mistrust. So the recipe in all this depressing story that I'm telling, I don't have a golden recipe, definitely. Hope we will all discuss about possible recipes, but I would like to raise a question of really the need for new era of digital enlightenment, to really teach our young generation as well as old generation of the way to use all the media technologies constructively, and to really learn and understand what is artificial intelligence, how it plays into our communication practices, and where it drags us, and somehow to regain control of all those machines and artificial intelligence. As well, I would like to point and issues to the way that we nowadays we are experiencing that diversity is broken because of those social networks and artificial intelligence setbacks. Basically, we are experiencing diversity in the platforms of Twitter and Facebook in tribal battles, in the way we are dragged into those aggressive discussions and so on. We are not experiencing it positively, different cultures, different political agendas and things like that. This, I think, is a big question. And my point here would be that really we have to bring back somehow, win back expertise in the whole public debate. It is especially important for our scientific community. And expertise is not a question of opinion. It's really a question of qualification, be it medical expertise, be it scientific expertise. So it's not a question of likes or shares. It's a question of really having, qualification to be an expert and to actually comment on things that you know and do not on things that you don't know. And in the end, I would like to maybe have an ideal vision on the way we communicate on this unstable world. By saying that sharing the information in digital environment should be based, I think, on the principle of Hippocratic Oath, which says, while treating the sick, I will protect them from all harm and abuse. So while sharing the information, participating in discussion, we really should think about the effects of this, and really try to bring together communities, not to clash them with each other. So thank you for once again for inviting me for this conference, and I'm looking forward for your questions.
Dear Nereus, thank you very much for providing information, reasonable insights and answers about what is the post-truth era. It seems that it's critical for us nowadays to be more educated in media literacy environment and be able to recognize the negative information attacks in the digital environment. So tell us, Nereus, how long will be the world unstable?
I really think that the world, this unstable world that we are entering, will be with us for some time. And it will be broken for some time because of various reasons. I think the first one is that we are actually living through a period of probably one of the major media revolutions of all time. And the way new type media is coming into play, be it social networks, be it online video platforms, be it online conferences that we are actually doing right now. It's a new social fabric. We for now even don't know the consequences it will have on our communities, on the way we do our business practices, on the way politics works, and on the way this brings trust or mistrust in the end. So I really am now on the side of those kind of skeptics for the future, but from the positive maybe perspective, because I think it is really important to diagnose issues in order to deal with them later effectively. So in this respect, I think we really have to claim back the control of our information environment and reality from artificial intelligence tools and machine learning tools, we have to really know how they work, to really have editorial control over those, because if we give those technologies free hand, I am afraid we will lose grasp of reality in near future.
Thank you, Nerijus. Thank you for being with us. Now we are moving to the next speaker, Dr. Jari Kaivo-Oja from Finland Futures Research Center, Turku School of Economics, University of Turku, Finland. Dr. Jari Kaivo-Oja has recorded his presentation, which is titled The Next Society Challenges of New Smart Specialization Strategies and Sustainable Development. S3, S4 platforms, Industry 4.0 era, Metaverse roadmap, and transition to green economy with digital twins. Dear audience, I'm inviting you to listen to this presentation, and I am sure there will be a lot to learn from these insights.
Hello, I'm Jari Kaivoja, and I am going to contribute to an international scientific conference, Societal Interactions, Rethinking Modern Issues. So my headline is The Next Society Challenges of New Smart Specialization Strategies and Sustainable Development as 3 as 4 platforms, Industry 4.0 era, Metaverse roadmap, and transition to green economy with digital twins. This is my topic. In the next slide, I'm presenting the VUCA environment. We know that we are in the VUCA environment nowadays, where we have volatility, much uncertainty, much complexity, much ambiguity, and all these 4 elements are quite painful for us every day, and we need to be agile. We need to use information and knowledge. We need restructuring, and we need more and more experimentation to manage VUCA-ability in our decision environment. And this environment is also disruptive. It's not nice environment, and we have had Corona crisis, we had Ukrainian war, and now we are moving to energy crisis during this winter. VUCA-ability continues. Here are some summarizing things what we can do with VUCA-ability, so we can always anticipate future developments and trends. We can challenge our systems and then interpret systems and then make decisions and then align and then learn again, and then we go this kind of circle. Every day we are doing these kind of things, and we need more and more these kind of tools to survive with the VUCA times. And there are different methods what we can use in these functions. We have anticipation methods, challenging methods, interpretation methods, deciding and decision model methods, align methods, and learning tools and methods. Then one starting point always in future studies is that there is link to historical events and history, and Confucius was saying that study the past if you would define the future. So this is one good advice, and we are in a way following this logic in this presentation when we talk about Industry 4.0 challenges, for example. And we can also say that in the future sustainability means probably that Web 3.0 will connect humans, machines and artificial intelligence to transform the world, and this is metaverse hypothesis. Or we can always say that this is never happening. This vision will be not relevant, and then we say or not. And then we have this Brundtlandian 3 dimensions and 3 systems. We have social systems, environmental systems and economic systems, and there are 3 basic hypotheses how these systems are having interlinkages. So we can say that social system can have a different role in these kind of different system thinking models. So there is this pillar model, there is this kind of endogenous growth model, or we have this kind of interacting systems thinking model. And it's interesting that social systems are having different role in these 3 models. Like we know well in our research team in Next Society team, that there is this kind of complex social systems and they have complex interactions. And if we put this system theoretical model to this previous slide, then we can apply this model in different context. Here we have technical artifacts, technical challenges. This is some kind of synthesis from Allied ICT Finland network, where 35 experts were thinking what Industry 4.0 actually means for techno futures. And here we have, of course, metaverse and human-driven ICT, Industry 4.0, future data economy, etc., etc. I'm not going into details, but these kind of things were identified to be relevant in Industry 4.0 era. Then we have these 2 key system theoretical frameworks. We have smart specialization strategy. We have a sustainability approach as 4 approach, and this we can identify there are 3 key issues, and then we have this kind of central concept in smart specialization strategy. We have this entrepreneurial discovery process, EDP, and in sustainability theory we have this green transition strategy, and then we can measure all these elements and also build up theoretical frameworks. And actually in our Big Data Excellence Center we have tried to operationalize both of these frameworks. Here we have this Sustainable Development Goals approach, which is global approach, and we can discuss can we reach Sustainable Development Goals and reach a more sustainable world. And scenarios, and we can have backcasting scenarios, and then we can also try to link forecasting and backcasting scenarios. And in this slide we have visualized both forecasting scenarios and backcasting scenarios of sustainable development, and this is actually grand theory of sustainable development. So in this figure we have all theoretical alternatives in sustainability window framework, and then we can identify very sustainable scenarios and less sustainable scenarios, and scenarios which are not sustainable at all. And this is leading us to see 32 scenarios, and this figure is also explaining what is degrowth theory in economics. So this is quite comprehensive framework, and now we have this framework available, and this framework can be tested by big data, and then we can understand what kind of economic process we are having in our economies and in our regions. And in this second figure we show this basic framework of futures research and foresight nowadays, that we can always have forecasting scenarios and we can have backcasting scenarios, and then we can also try to link forecasting and backcasting scenarios. And in this slide we have visualized both forecasting scenarios and backcasting scenarios of sustainable development, and this is actually grand theory of sustainable development. So in this figure we have all theoretical alternatives in sustainability window framework, and then we can identify very sustainable scenarios and less sustainable scenarios, and scenarios which are not sustainable at all. And this is leading us to see 32 scenarios, and this figure is also explaining what is degrowth theory in economics. So this is quite comprehensive framework, and now we have this framework available, and this framework can be tested by big data, and then we can understand what kind of economic process we are having in our economies and in our regions. Then we have this kind of challenges concerning previous sustainable growth table. So we can now try to develop digital twins for the most sustainable solutions. We can use forecasting and backcasting scenarios approaches for planning our economies and our societies. Then we can also avoid irrational and impossible scenarios, because there was also that kind of scenarios in this table. And the key message is that we should understand the variety of scenarios, because there was 32 scenarios, and typically many planners are using 3 or 4 or 5 scenarios, but this figure is telling that this is limited approach. And we can also limit the space of bounded rationality and understand the bounded rationality space in human behavior when we use this kind of table. Herbert Simon's theory is still relevant from this perspective. Then we have had this big data figure, so I'm not going into details, but we have a lot of data concerning sustainable and development goals. There are over 300 variables, and we have more and more data available every week. We are getting more and more data, and then the key question is, can we use this big data to construct digital twin approach? And then we have this kind of data integration challenge, where we have model physical to virtual, virtual to physical approach, and then we can move towards digital twins in our planning. For example, in city planning we can use digital twins, in industrial planning we can use digital twins, etc., etc. And here we have metaverse roadmap, which is in a way synthesis approach, that Web 3.0 is going to be a future challenge, where we are actually having new kind of interfaces, new kind of logic, new kind of data, and new kind of protocol in IT field. And then we have this kind of metaverse roadmap, and we can read many books like this dissertation, which was discussing what digital twin web is going to be in the future. So we are moving from World Wide Web to digital twin web. And this is quite fundamental change in our systems. And then we are going to have also metaverse reality. So we have already this kind of books, for example, this metaverse handbook this is not a very good book, but actually we have this kind of book, but I'm trying to write a better book about metaverse roadmap, which is more comprehensive than this handbook. Okay, and here we have a final table where we can see the vision of metaverse, where we have this connectivity, communications, content, and commerce realized online. And this is the core content of metaverse vision, where we have these 5 C's together online. And then we of course have these previous steps of internet web 1.0, web 2.0, and now web 3.0. And now we are moving towards reality where we are going to use more and more digital twin solutions in city planning. For example, smart city planning is going to include wide use of digital twins. And here we have one example, Toyota Woven City example, which is now implemented in Tokyo. Just one example. And then there is another example, is this Cambridge Digital Build Britain project, which is also very interesting. And this project has been implemented 5 years in UK, and they have had this kind of approach where they are investigating social world, people, what people are doing. They are investigating physical world, what kind of elements we have in physical world, and how we can identify relevant digital twins in physical world. And then we have digital world, where we have digital twins available for planning and other purposes. And this is good example what metaverse reality can mean for us in the future. And here we have EU programs where what we can use when we develop this kind of new kind of systems, new kind of technologies, new kind of social innovations, new kind of business models, whatever we develop, so we can use all these kind of instruments in Horizon Europe program and in other programs what we now have. And then if we think of top research or this kind of very ambient research, then we have this kind of instruments available: doctoral networks, postdoctoral fellowships, staff exchanges, co-funding tools, and MSCA and citizens programs. So all these instruments are available for us, and we should discuss more what we like to see in the future in Lithuania, and then go on with this kind of tools. Of course, there are many other instruments in Horizon Europe program, but these are for ambient research activities.
Thank you, Jari Kaivoja, for your presenting research. I strongly believe that we all have got information to consider along. Dear audience, now I'm inviting to the virtual stage Gabija Skučaitė, Chancellor at SMK University of Applied Social Sciences, PhD candidate at ICM University of Management and Economics, Lithuania. Gabia is going to talk on the topic searching for the meaning in an unstable world, how sense-making practices in organizations can bring order to the chaos. Gabia, the floor is yours.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Hello, good morning. My name is Gabija Skučaitė, and I'm really glad to present at this conference with another scholars. And we had a little trigger before my presentation because it seems that I cannot show my screen from my laptop. So we will teamwork with our administrator from the studio. So he will be showing my presentation, my slides, and I will be accompanying him with speaking. So we hope it will work well, but we also ask your forgiveness if something will go wrong. So just be forgivable for us. And yes, so actually that's my presentation. What is about all the triggers which are happening in our lives and make some chaos and how to deal with this. And with my presentation, which is a very conceptual presentation, so I don't have any empirical evidence which I would make from, which I have like from the empirical research, which I just started exploring this field of sense-making in organizations, and I combine semiotics, new theories of neo-materialism, and also organizational theory, and I want to weave all those together into some new theory for organizational developments. So we will start, and probably you already see the name of the presentation is Searching for the Meaning in an Unstable World, and how sense-making practices in organizations can bring order to the chaos. So, from the presentation title, we already have some concepts here, which I want to focus on today. And also with this presentation, I wanted to rely on the conference topic, which is about social issues, about instability, about something what is happening in our society, in our world, what is troubling us. And from the previous presentation, I heard some thoughts that we need new decisions or some new ways how to deal with everything what is happening. And I think that my my approach from the sense-making perspective and bringing this to the level of organizations would be an answer, could be also some kind of the reasonable and also practical decision in this quite a chaotic world. But as you will see during the presentation, the idea of sense-making makes a chaos quite a good and needed force, and actually the force which cannot be avoided. And this is like a precondition for the sense-making. So in my presentation, I will cover these concepts, starting from the understanding of the chaotic world in organization. Then I will go to the understanding of the concept of the meaning, and then we will speak about sense-making and how this could be a good solution. So we will go to the first slide. Deimantas, I hope you can start showing the first slide, because I don't see myself and okay, I see that now we have the presentation so as I said, this is conceptual presentation which aims to bring understanding of perpetual change in the context of organizational theory, and particularly in the field of sense-making. Now, at the same time, almost at the same time, we face a whole constellation of different crises. Pandemic, war, a huge inflation, increase of the energy prices, then definitely accompanying economic crisis, civil unrest, rapidly escalating consequences of climate change, and etc. So the main question is how to deal with this chaotic environment, and I want to start asking this from the perspective of chaos theory in organization settlement. And here I use the theory of Gerard and Fergus, who described this in the chaos theory and organization article, in an article about chaos theory and organizations. And what they provide us is that there are 6 propositions which describes how different properties of chaotic domain makes organizations nonlinear dynamic systems, which are subject to forces of stability and forces of instability. And these forces push organization towards chaos. And when organizations act in this chaotic domain, these organizations are likely to exhibit the qualitative properties of the chaotic systems. So those 6 propositions are, the first one, it is because of this effect of counteracting forces, organizations itself are potentially chaotic. Second, the path from organizational stability to chaos follows a discrete process of change. Third, when the organization acts in this chaotic domain, small changes can have big consequences that cannot be predicted in the long term. You know, from the natural sciences, we know that chaos theory is represented by this butterfly effect, so that that natural effect still could be applied in organizations, at her organization perspective. From chaos, new stabilities emerge, these strange attractors which are assimilated to organizational configurations. So we always are in the path or in this area of entropy, so which is happening all the time. And in our lives and also in our organizations, what we can do is create those like little islands of stability and learn from them, and also to understand that this is a cycle which always emerge and evolve, and we learn from this stability to face another instability. Fifth proposition is that similar patterns should be found at different scales. So this theory and the nature of the house has some similarities which reflects and also continues at different cycles. But if we learn from one cycle, then we could be much more clever in another cycle, because similarities will appear. And finally, during one single of organizational lifespan or between two different organizations, similar actions should never lead to the same result. So it means that we need to learn individually and collectively, but it's never, the sense which we create will never be the same. As a central assumption in organization science is that organizations are intrinsic feature of the social world. So organization exists largely in the mind, accordingly to the Wake, and which I will cite further. And existence of organizations takes the form of cognitive maps. So if we think about organization and we know what organization is, so organizations are those places which could make the world for us more stable. And also organization together is what ties thoughts together, because we act in this settlement of mind maps. So let's go to the second slide, Deimantas. And now I want to bring this good side of the house, citing Rosary, because house and complexity, being metaphors of new connections, draw our attention to some new phenomena and could help us see what could not seen before. And that means that we need to understand this chaotic nature of the universe, this entropy, which according to the second law of thermodynamics exists, and we cannot create the stability unless it will be in some vacuum which is not affected by any force. But seeing that the world is open and the person, human and organizations are always open to some triggers, so the entropy and house always exist. There's no way to create a stability. So this dichotomy, which is very regularly analyzed between stability and instability, actually means the cycle that we can go only from one cycle to another one by learning something from chaotic environment and bringing in to create such an island of stability. So if I don't know in which, okay, so let's go to another slide, because now I would like to turn, shift a little bit to the concept of the meaning, because if we can say that the nature of the house is to create this instability, we need to understand how, by dealing with chaotic situations in organizations, we can create some meaning. But firstly, the most important question is, what is the meaning? And the meaning is such a wide concept, and there are different perspectives from different sciences, how it is described and what is the concept of the meaning. So I'm bringing a few of them. And Deimantas, are we in the first slide about the meaning? Because I see that we're still on. No, let's go further. Yes, the meaning of meaning. So meaning can be considered from three different perspectives: as a cognitive phenomena, like concept. That means that something has a meaning because we understand what that means. But sometimes the concept cannot have exact meaning or explicit meaning, which is understandable for everybody. In that way, we understand the meaning as a kind of a relational phenomenon or different thought maps, which connects our thoughts about some kind of existing feature of the world or some object of the world or matter. So that in that kind, meaning acts as a relational phenomenon. But also the meaning could be observed from the perspective of values and deep structure, mostly ideologies. So in that perspective, we can say that meaning means something what is valuable for us. Meaningfulness then is related to our values, and we create then those meanings very idiosyncratically, individually, by establishing meanings by ourselves. Not the common meanings as in the first perspective, as a cognitive phenomenon, like if the dog is dog, we all can agree. Nevertheless, it can have different like from the linguistic perspective, it could varies how it will be called, but we could understand the concept of dog, but the concept of love could be very differently understood from the perspective of values and ideology. Because I am PhD student in organizational science, but I'm also semiotics from my master field of studies. So beginner semiotic, not the established one, but I use my little knowledge of the semiotics and I adapt it to my science, to my research in science and in organizational theory. So today I want to bring also semiotic perspective, which really suits here and makes this more provable example, because from semiotic perspective, the meaning is an articulated sense. And what does it mean? That to have a meaning of something, firstly, we need to have a sense of that thing or that nature of something, and we need to articulate that. So going to the organizational perspective, I could theorize that we need to have the sense of our activities, our thoughts, the nature of how we act and what we think and what we learn in organizations. So we need to have a sense of this, and this sense needs to be articulated in order to have a meaning. So if we want to create meaningful organization, we need to firstly create sense-making processes in organizations. And that's brings us to the perspective of sense-making in organizations. And we could go to the next slide, please. And I will very shortly present, because the concept is quite wide, and we could just very shortly and generally at very general level, take a look at the concept of sense making and the value of its adaptation in our organization. As I said before, that the attitude, the concept, the approach of sense making could be and actually it is, if we understand how to make it, very valuable in creating meaningful organizations and creating actually meaning in organization. So the concept of sense making, whose founder and theorist is American scholar and Professor Carl Weig, is considered as the process through which people assign meaning to some issues or events or rituals that cause the current state of the world to be different from the expected state. And here I would like to add some remark, because we understand, we still have this maybe obsolete already understanding of the organizations as functional systems, where they need to have this futuristic planning, KPIs, and only forward-looking way to the future, which doesn't make sense with sense-making perspective, because sense-making is always retrospective and prospective altogether. So if we will have only planning measures or procedures in our organizations, definitely there will be something happening what will be unexpected, because that's the nature of the world. As I was talking before, the just nature of the chaotic world. So sense making help us to deal with this unexpected reality, which is always happening. So Wake originally focused his attention on the concept of enactment. Enactment is an activity where individuals and organizations activate themselves to interpret the ongoing and chaotic environment. So enactment is a process not only of the action, but also of the using the sense making process in our abilities from the retrospective cycle to enact the environment with much more cautiousness, with much more meaningfulness, with much more wisdom. So the product of this activity is so-called enacted environment. And the sense-making process was originally conceived as starting from the appearance of some chaotic situations that happens because of this ecology of life, and whose meanings are not given, they just appear to us. And in other words, chaotic situations are trigger events that form this source of raw material for the sense-making process. The next slide, please. So as it was said, the main occasions for the sense-making are this chaotic environment. So we need some kind of chaos to make sense. So actually, it's a very paradoxical statement, but that's the true nature of the world in organizations as well, that in order to make sense, in order to make meaning, in order to be to create more wisdom, we need some kind of chaos, and we need some complexity, turbulence, and information load. So according to the properties which are crucial by another researchers, Hubert and Daft, they call those three properties which are needed to create sense making. This is information load. That's really what's happening, and you see the time when they published that. So now we have this information overload, which is huge and happening in such a big progression, in big complexity, which is also became much more complex, and in this turbulence of the world. So organizational sense making lies in this disruptive ambiguity. And it is triggered by an unequal event and interrupts our ongoing activities, forcing them retrospectively make sense of this disrupted activity. And going forward, I could say that in the sense-making theory, we could see we could find the approach of different other organizational theories, and from the process theory approach, we could say that Wake made us see that organization is an outcome of this evolutionary process of organizing, and also directed attention to the sense-making roots of this process. And that's how we really can rethink how organizations are constituted, that they are not these stable entities which never face any chaotic environment. We see organizations as always evolving entities which needs to be open to these changes and make sense of this. And then going forward with the slide, we also Deimantas, yes, another one. Next slide. Also, in the sense making, we can find constructivist approach as well, because sense making is also seen as a constructive practice. It's never something what is already given or done, or in which never evolutes, never elevates. So it is always constructed. It includes how people concerned with their identity in different contexts or events, how they extract some new cues, make some new knowledge, and make this possible because of this retrospective dimension, because they enact into this environment and make more or less order into those ongoing events. So they bring this meaningness maybe as well to their regular ongoing activities. So sense making is this socially constructed process, and it helps us. And it helps us to face this environment. And the next slide can explain, next slide can explain how this happened, because you already understood that we need, for sense making, we understand that chaotic environment is needed and it's happening, it's unavoidable, but how this sense making really happens. And my presentation title was about how the sense-making practices can bring this order to the house. And I will not present some practices, but I will make an example of this, about sense-making model, about sense-making process, about how it happens. So how does sense-making happening in organization? Probably as everything, what starts have meaning, we need to understand that we need to pay attention to this. So the knowledgeable understanding that is just not something what just happens, but that is sense-making process, and that we can learn from it is a basic feature, is like a basic settlement. The awareness that we need to have sense-making practices. And then organizational members can start notice those cues and triggers which prompt the change. And then they can share information relating to those, to the cue, to some triggers, to something what was happening. they can compare different interpretations, review possible responses, all in this iterative, social, and discursive manner. So it means by understanding that we need to catch the sense, to share this with the others, and learn from this, we could bring much more order to the house. We could become much more meaningful organizations or much more meaningfully acting humans. And in the next slide, we'll present the Wake's sense-making model. Yes, so this is taken from his book, and it represents how Wake presented this model. I will not go in very much detail because of the lack of the time, but it shows that we have this ecology of life, ecological change, and from that we enact with the environment. It's always social situation. It's always focused with some ongoing updating. And then we make, after enactment process, if we have this retrospection, extraction of the cues, and we select what we can learn, then we could make retention of the wisdom, retention of the meanings in our organizations. It means that after this cycle will happen again, we could have much more wisdom, much more meaningfulness in our lives. And the last slide is about why everything what I was presenting and just very generally about sense-making theory, why this sense-making is important, especially nowadays when we probably theorize or dramatize maybe also that this chaotic environment is getting us to some kind of a bigger drama, but that's the nature of the human and the society, to see the changes as something what really is doesn't make sense, but from the sense-making perspective, changes make sense. They are needed for us. And when we can look at the perspective of the organization as more like discursive space or interpretive system or some more learning curve from of the organizational development, so it's becoming increasingly relevant in today's uncertain environment to use sense-making perspective. Then events or triggers or some situations which were unpredictable could make sense in our organizational beliefs. And it could build new norms, new values, new behaviors, new mental models over time. So organizations need to revisit and reinvent responses as environment change. And as such, sense-making practice critically underpins all strategic change activities. And it's fundamental in achieving sustainable performance outcomes, in achieving much more better learning results, and also in creating meaningful organizations. And that's how I would like to end my presentation, with a wish to build more meaning in our lives, and especially in our organization, which could definitely create a much better society. And then that could be really a good decision and answer to even this big constellation of the crisis. So thank you very much. I see that maybe I took too much of your time, so really sorry for that.
Dear Gabia, everything is fine with time. And thank you. You gave us a lot of valuable ideas, concepts, which you highlighted in your presentation. Gabia considered the challenges that organizations have to cope with when functioning in this unstable world. It seems that sense-making practice is a solution there. We are moving to the next presentation, and our next key speaker is Dr. Olena Chikansova from Kiev, Ukraine. Unfortunately, we have just received the news that there is an airstrike happening at the moment in Kiev. Therefore, Dr. Olena will not be able to join us live due to the unstable internet connection there. Ironically, at the moment we are discussing about instability in the world, and it is so real, so close to us that it's hard to comprehend. Dr. Olena Chikansova from Chamata Laboratory of Psychology of Personality, Kostyuk Institute of Psychology of the National Academy of Educational Science of Ukraine has recorded a presentation on personal resources of hardiness, where we will hear about her research on mental health issues. If anyone can discuss this subject, it is Dr. Olena Chikansova from Kiev. Please welcome her presentation.
Good morning, dear organizers and participants of the conference. Thank you very much for the invitation to participate in the conference and make a presentation. I plan to speak in person, but unfortunately, circumstances have developed in such a way that at the moment Ukraine has big problems with electricity due to the war, and our electricity is turned off every day, at any time, and for a long time. Therefore, I must present my report on the record. I really want to thank all the Lithuanian people for your support and help. Thank you very much. And now I would like to share my screen. And the topic of my presentation is the personal resources of hardiness. The urgence of the problem of human behavior in difficult life situations has grown even more recently due to the coronavirus pandemic and war in Ukraine. The problem of hardiness is very actual for Ukrainians because it aims at identifying factors that help counteract the negative influence of the environment, contribute to finding eternal resources and reserves that provide a person with independence of choice, self-development, and self-realization. Their concept of hardiness was introduced firstly in American psychology by Salvador Mardi and Susan Cabeza. According to Mardi's and Cabeza's study, people, those attitudes toward life reflected high levels of control, commitment, and challenge are healthier than those whose attitudes don't. Hardiness is related to low levels of anxiety proneness and general tendency to react calmly to stress. So, by Mardi and Cabeza, hardiness consists of three components: control, commitment, and challenge. So, What about the first one? Control over circumstances help us to find ways to influence on the outcome of stress changes, contrary to falling into a state of helplessness and passivity. Commitment is an important characteristic of a person's attitude to himself or herself, the surrounding world, and interaction with it, which gives strength and motivates him or her to self-realization, leadership, healthy thoughts, and behavior. Commitment allows the person to feel important and enough valuable to be fully engaged in life problem solving without paying attention to stress factors and changes. Challenge helps the person to be open to the surrounding world, other people, and society. Its essence lies in the perception by a person of his or her life events and problems as a challenge and test for himself or herself. Our study was conducted on the basis of the Laboratory of Personality Psychology at Kostuk Institute of Psychology in Kyiv. The study lasted 3 years, and I would like to present a part of our research results. In the empirical study, we use the following methods. Muddy's hardiness test, Reeves scale of psychological well-being, casual orientation scale, purpose in life test, and the self-determination scale. We interviewed 1,075 Ukrainians from 14 till 70 years old. All participants are different in level of education, professional employment, profession, family and social status, level of income, and they are all from different cities and villages of Ukraine. So we try to interview all regions and most of all categories of people. We noted that a large part of the respondents showed average result of hardiness, as presented at figure 1. So we can see that almost 70% of our respondents have medium level of hardiness. At figure 2, the data shows that commitment indicators of 60% of respondents are somewhat higher, and it is the leading component of hardiness. This means that such respondents are satisfied with their activities in different situations. This may be due to insufficient knowledge and experience and confidence and in implementation of their capabilities. As for the control and challenge indicators, these characteristics are formed at the above average level. At 52% and 58% of the respondents, we can see that control and challenge are lower. About half of the respondents are still convinced that they can influence their own lives. They believe that they are able to make important life choices on their own. Such respondents are open to experience and believe that such joint experience is a guarantee for success. But we think that in such difficult life circumstances as the COVID-19 pandemic and the war in our country, also other personal parameters are needed to be a hardy person. So now I present an extended model of hardiness. However, given the current life circumstances that affect the individual, we believe that it is necessary to consider the phenomenon of hardiness more widely. We supplemented the structure of hardiness with such personal parameters as goals, well-being, self-confidence, self-attitude, self-efficiency, and autonomy. So Madi and Kobesa hardiness model consists of 3 components, and our model of hardiness consists of 9 components. And this model of hardiness is a system of stable positive personality traits, which we understand as a resource that contributes the successful adaptation of the person to the surrounding world in his or her own pursuit of psychological well-being, and also performs an important buffer function, that is, prevents destructive development. The results of the correlation analysis of hardiness indicators and personal parameters show that our extended hardiness model is appropriate. And as we can see from the table, all the specified personal parameters are of a great importance for the person, except for autonomy. This can be explained by the fact that being in self-isolation or quarantine during the pandemic, or being in a territory where there are military actions, the person cannot always be autonomous and depends on many factors. The analysis of the psychological features proves that the self-confidence, self-attitude, and self-efficiency, independence of people with meaningful goals in a resource for the development of the hardiness. So we can see this on figure. All these components of hardiness are related to self-determination, self-organization, psychological well-being, availability and awareness of life plans and goals, availability of personal resources, and conditions for achieving future goals. Therefore, the promotion of a person's hardiness consists in the actualization of his or her internal resources, which are found in the understanding of actions and deeds and confidence in the result of his or her activities. All this will help to overcome all difficulties and to remain a healthy person, both physically and mentally. So, as a conclusion, if the person wants to be healthy, he or she has to develop all these components of hardiness. So all these components are very important to be healthy. Thank you very much for your attention, and this picture is like a hardiness. Thank you very much once more for your attention, and have a nice day.
Hope that you are safe at a safe place right now. We will keep in touch with Olena to follow up on the developing situation in Ukraine. All our thoughts are with you, Olena, right now. And to summarize, I thank all the presenters, participants for your devoted attitude to the topics we touched upon today. Take care. Our conference is continuing. Now we are moving to the Zoom platform to join the parallel sessions, which will start at 12. Please note Vilnius time. In order to enter your preferred conference session, please press a Zoom link below, which will allow you to choose one of the 4 sessions rooms. The section 1, Educational Innovations for Human Development. The section 4, the second section, Data Security, Communication and Branding. Session 3, Wealth, Health and Wellness Trends. And session 4 will discuss business, creative economy and legal issues. Enjoy. And I want to say simply, till our next meetings. Bye.